meeting the liberated black freedom fighter Assata Shakur. In 2007, and as I would like to say, like a senior consultant for a party youth delegation. And then there was 2000, and that's really what I want to talk about, because that was the year, and this was right after we had that tremendous rally at Madison Square Garden Theater for Mumia Abu-Jamal, where 6,000 people came out, and to demand his freedom. And so, just 1 month later, myself and Pam Africa and Lennox Hines, who is the lawyer for Assata, Rosemary Mealy, who wrote the book on Fidel and Malcolm X's Harlem visit in 1960, Gloria Ruback, a party member and a leader of the anti-death penalty movement in Texas, and others, we were able to meet with Fidel. And why were we able to meet with him? And as Larry said, it was one of those things, you may be getting a visitor type of situations. It really was. And the answer goes to the heart of really who Fidel was, as a revolutionary communist who was on the front lines in expressing solidarity with oppressed peoples, be they in Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, or Asia, and yes, even inside the imperialist countries, including the United States. We were able to meet with Fidel because he wanted to meet with activists who are connected to the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal, a former Black Panther and journalist who was still fighting for his life at that time on Pennsylvania's death row. He was also concerned with saving the life of Shaka Sankofa, also known as Gary Graham, who was executed in Texas just weeks after we were in Cuba. And Fidel sat us down and asked us all different questions about both cases. He even sat with us critiquing a recording of a roundtable discussion our delegation did in Cuba on the prison industrial complex. Fidel was 73, going on 74 years old, and his mind was as sharp as a tack, and so was his humor. He had been waiting for us to come back from a visit of Old Havana, and with laughter, he scolded us for being late. And this was the day after we first met with him. So we didn't know we were going to, meet with him again. So it was really quite, just an inspiring and unforgettable experience. I want to encourage all of you all to read the excellent article that Abayomi Azikiwe, one of our paper's contributing editors and editor of the Pan-African Newswire, wrote for this issue about Cuba's close relations with Africa, especially with national liberation movements on the continent, from Namibia to South Africa to Guinea-Bissau to Ghana, etc. Fidel and Cuba extended that relationship with African descendants throughout the diaspora, including the United States, whether it was giving refuge to Black liberation fighters like Huey P. Newton or Assata and others escaping U.S. racist terror, offering doctors and nurses to come to the Gulf Coast to provide free medical care for the victims of Hurricane Katrina in 2005, but being denied entry by the racist Bush administration. And there are many, many other examples I'm sure others can raise about this solidarity. When Fidel would come to speak in Harlem or in the Bronx to thousands of people inside and outside, he spoke about political prisoners like Mumia. Fidel stated in theory and in practice that Africa flows through the veins of the Cuban people, and also that Africa gave Cuba its culture. And this is why Fidel and the Cuban Revolution has been so hated by 10 U.S. administrations and so loved not only by millions of Cubans, but oppressed peoples and workers throughout the globe. As we can see with the millions of Cubans who have expressed their love and grief over his death, we all know that the Cuban Revolution will never die because of the unwavering, uncompromising legacy of anti-imperialist solidarity and socialist ideas he has left behind, not only for the masses today, but for future generations. So I think it's only fitting for me to end my remarks by reading Mamiya's tribute to Fidel that was just sent out today. And it's called Fidel Castro Raúl's Viva Fidel. Fidel Castro, father of the 1959 Cuban Revolution, has died after 90 years of a life of rebellion and resistance. That this bold revolutionary figure lived as long as he did is itself a victory, for he outlived at least 11 assassination attempts launched by the CIA, 11 times that the US government has admitted. As a young man, he earned a law degree, but he never practiced. He took the revolutionary path and began a struggle against the US-supported Cuban dictator Batista. That struggle, which led to the fall of Batista, inspired people all over the world. One of those inspired was the late Huey P. Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, who in a 1967 jail interview noted, quote, "When Fidel started the revolution along with Che Guevara, with 12 of them all together, they realized that they wouldn't be able to topple the oppressive regime in Cuba. What they were essentially was an educational body. They engaged with the army, they fought with the army, and they showed the people that the army was not bulletproof, that the police were not bulletproof, and that Batista's regime was not a regime that was impossible to topple. So the people began to feel their strength." End quote. Fidel was a friend of Malcolm X and a lifelong friend of Africa. The racist regime of apartheid South Africa got whipped in Angola, with tens of thousands of Cuban troops in the field. The notorious Battle of Quito Pomale, Angola, was where South Africa saw the bloody handwriting on the wall. Castro once said, quote, African blood flows in our veins. Many of our ancestors came as slaves from Africa to this land. As slaves, they struggled quite a great deal. They fought as members of the Liberating Army of Cuba. We're brothers and sisters of the people of Africa, and we are ready to fight on their behalf, end quote. Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution never bowed to the US empire, not once in over half a century. The Cuban Revolution produced the finest educational system in the Caribbean and much of the world. They have sent their doctors all around the earth. The world mourns the passing of a giant. Fidel Castro Raúl's Comandante de la Revolución presente.